A merry little surge of electricity, piped by automatic alarm from the Penfield mood organ beside his bed, awakened Rick Deckard. He rose from the bed, stood up in his multicolored pajamas, and stretched. Now, in her bed, his wife, Iran, opened her gray, unmerry eyes, blinked, then groaned, and shut her eyes again. "You set your Penfield too weak," he said to her. "I'll reset it, and you'll be awake, and keep your hand off my settings." Her voice held bitter sharpness. "I don't want to be awake." He seated himself beside her, bent over her, and explained softly, "If you set the surge up high enough, you'll be glad you're awake. That's the whole point. At setting C, it overcomes the threshold barring consciousness, as it does for me." He patted her bare, pale shoulder. "Get your crude cop's hand away," Iran said. "I'm not a cop." He felt irritable now. "You're worse," his wife said, her eyes still shut. "You're a murderer, hired by the cops. I've never killed a human being in my life." His irritability had risen now, had become outright hostility. Iran said, "Just those poor Andes. I notice you've never had any hesitation as to spending the bounty money I bring home on whatever momentarily attracts your attention." After a hurried breakfast, he ascended, clad for venturing out, including his Ajax model mountebank lead codpiece, to the covered roof pasture whereon his electric sheep grazed, and there it chomped away in simulated contentment, bamboozling the other tenants of the building. Of course, some of their animals undoubtedly consisted of electronic circuitry fakes, too. He had, of course, never nosed into the matter any more than they, his neighbors, had pried into the real workings of his sheep. Nothing could be more impolite. To say, "Is your sheep genuine?" would be a worse breach of manners than to inquire whether a citizen's teeth, hair, or internal organs would test out authentic. The morning air, spilling over with radioactive motes, gray and sun-beclouding, belched about him, haunting his nose. He sniffed involuntarily. The taint of death. Despite his lead codpiece, the dust, undoubtedly, filtered in and at him, brought him daily, so long as he failed to emigrate, its little load of befouling filth. So far, medical checkups taken monthly confirmed him as a regular, a man who could reproduce within the tolerances set by law. Any month, however, the exam by the San Francisco Police Department doctors could reveal otherwise. The saying currently blabbed by posters, TV ads, and government junk mail ran, "Emigrate or degenerate. The choice is yours. And don't forget, the android of your choice will be waiting to serve you when you arrive on your new home planet." Very true, Rick thought, as he opened the gate to his little pasture and approached his electric sheep. "But I can't emigrate," he said to himself, "because of my job." The owner of the adjoining pasture, his conapt neighbor, Bill Barber, hailed him. He, like Rick, had dressed for work, but had stopped off on the way to check his animal, too. "My horse," Barber declared beamingly, "is pregnant." He indicated the big Percheron, which stood staring off in an empty fashion into space. "What do you say to that?" "I say, pretty soon you'll have 2 horses," Rick said. He had reached his sheep now. It lay ruminating, its alert eyes fixed on him in case he had brought any rolled oats with him. The alleged sheep contained an oat tropic circuit. At the sight of such cereals, it would scramble up convincingly and amble over. "You'll sell the colt?" Rick asked. He wished to God he had a horse. In fact, any animal. Owning and maintaining a fraud had a way of gradually demoralizing one. Exploring about in his coat pockets, Rick found his creased, much-studied copy of Sydney's Animal and Fowl Catalog, January supplement. He looked in the index, found colts, and presently had the prevailing national price. "I can buy a Percheron colt from Sydney's for $5,000, he said aloud. "No, you can't," Barber said. "Look at the listing again. It's in italics. That means they don't have any in stock, but that would be the price if they did have." "Suppose," Rick said, "I pay you $500 a month for 10 months, full catalog value." That was bounty from retiring 5 rogue Andes, But what, thought Deckard, is the chance of 5 rogue Andys turning up on my patch? Pityingly, Barber said, "Deckard, you don't understand about horses. Percheron colts just don't change hands. At catalog value even. They're too scarce, even relatively inferior ones. But, hell, you have your sheep." Going over to his sheep, Rick bent down, searching in the thick white wool. The fleece, at least, was genuine, until he found what he was looking for, the concealed control panel of the mechanism. As Barber watched, he snapped open the panel covering, revealing it. "See," he said to Barber, "you understand now why I want your colt so badly." After an interval, Barber said, "You poor guy. Has it always been this way?" "No," Rick said, once again closing the panel covering of his electric sheep. He straightened up, turned, and faced his neighbor. "I had a real sheep originally. My wife's father gave it to us outright when he emigrated. Then, about a year ago, remember that time I took it to the vet? Tetanus. After he died, I thought about it, and finally I called one of those shops that manufacture artificial animals, and I showed them a photograph of Groucho. They made this. But—" He shrugged. "It's not the same," Barber finished. He glanced suddenly at his watch, remembering the time. "I have to get to work," he said to Barber. "I'll see you this evening." As he started toward his car, Barber called after him hurriedly, I won't say anything to anybody here in the building." On his way to work, Rick Deckard, as Lord knew how many other people, stopped briefly to skulk about in front of one of San Francisco's larger pet shops along Animal Row. In the center of the block-long display window, an ostrich, in a heated, clear plastic cage, returned his stare. The bird, according to the info plaque attached to the cage, had just arrived from a zoo in Cleveland. It was the only ostrich on the West Coast. After staring at it, Rick spent a few more minutes staring grimly at the price tag. He then continued on to the Hall of Justice on Lombard Street and found himself a quarter of an hour late to work. As he unlocked his office door, his superior, Police Inspector Harry Bryant, sloppily dressed but wise-eyed, hailed him.
"Dave Holden is in Mount Zion Hospital with a laser track through his spine. He'll be there for a month at least, until they can get one of those new organic plastic spinal sections to take hold."
"What happened?" Rick asked, chilled.
"It must have been one of those new, extra clever Andys the Rosen Association's turning out,"
Bryant muttered over his shoulder as he departed along the corridor, leaving Rick standing alone. Seating himself at his desk, he fished about in a drawer until he found an ancient, creased manila envelope. He rummaged among the contents of the envelope until he came across what he wanted, the collected, extant data on the Rosen Nexus 6 android. A moment's reading confirmed his suspicion. No intelligence test would trap such a sophisticated Andy. The Nexus 6 android types, Rick reflected, surpassed several classes of humans degraded by the dust, specials, in terms of intelligence. The servant had in some cases become more adroit than its master. But new scales of achievement, for example, the Voight-Kampff empathy test, had emerged as criteria by which to judge. An android, no matter how gifted as to pure intellectual capacity, could make no sense at all out of one particular thing: empathy. Rick liked to think of humanoid robots as solitary predators. It made his job palatable. In retiring, that is, killing an Andy, he did not violate the rule of life. For Rick Deckard, an escaped humanoid robot, which had killed its master, which had been equipped with an intelligence greater than that of many human beings, which had no regard for animals, which possessed no ability to feel empathetic joy for another life form's success or grief at its defeat, that, for him, epitomized the killers. At 9:30, he stood before Inspector Bryant's office door. He felt depressed. "Maybe I'm worried," Rick Deckard conjectured, "that what happened to Dave will happen to me, and Andy, smart enough to laser him, could probably take me, too." But that didn't seem to be it.
I see you brought the poop sheet on that new brain unit, Inspector Bryant said, hanging up the vidphone.
Rick said, "Yeah, I heard about it on the grapevine. How many Andys are involved, and how far did Dave get?"
8 to start with,
Bryant said, consulting his clipboard.
They've got the first 2.
And the remaining 6 are here in Northern California?
As far as we know. Dave thinks so. That was him I was talking to. I have his notes. They were in his desk. He says all he knows is here.
"I have nothing on my agenda," Rick offered. "I'm ready to take over in Dave's place."
Bryant said thoughtfully, Dave used the Voight-Kampff altered scale in testing out the individuals he suspected. You realize, you ought to anyhow, that this test isn't specific for the new brain units. No test is. The Voight scale, altered 3 years ago by Kampff, is all we have.
He paused, pondering.
Dave considered it accurate. Maybe it is. But I would suggest this before you take out after these 6.
Again he tapped the pile of notes.
Fly to Seattle and talk with the Rosen people. Have them supply you a representative sampling of types employing the new Nexus 6 unit.
And put them through the Voight-Kampff.
It sounds so easy,
Bryant said, half to himself. Pardon?
I think I'll talk to the Rosen organization myself while you're on your way.
Bryant eyed Rick then, silently.
I'm going to discuss with them the possibility of including several humans, as well as their new androids. But you won't know.
He abruptly pointed at Rick, his face severe.
This is the first time you'll be acting as senior bounty hunter. Dave knows a lot. He's got years of experience behind him.
So have I, Rick said tensely.
Psychiatrists in Leningrad, Bryant continued, think that a small class of human beings could not pass the Voight-Kampff scale. If you tested them in line with police work, you'd assess them as humanoid robots. You'd be wrong, but by then, they'd be dead.
He was silent now, waiting for Rick's answer. 1,000,000 to 1 odds, Rick said, but he saw the point.
Bryant went on. You understand, don't you, that this could go wrong either way. If you can't pick out all the humanoid robots, then we have no reliable analytical tool, and we'll never find the ones who are already escaping. If your scale factors out a human subject, identifies him as android,
Bryant beamed at him icily,
it would be awkward, although no one, absolutely not the Rosen people, will make the news public.
He picked the phone up.
You want to get started? Use a department car and fuel yourself at our pumps.
Standing, Rick said, "Can I take Dave Holden's notes with me? I want to read them along the way." Bryant said,
Let's wait until you've tried out your scale in Seattle.
When Rick landed the police department hover car on the roof of the Rosen Association building in Seattle, he found a young woman waiting for him. Black-haired and slender, wearing the new, huge, dust-filtering glasses, she approached his car, her hands deep in the pockets of her brightly striped long coat. She had on her sharply defined small face an expression of sullen distaste. "What's the matter?" Rick said as he stepped from the parked car. The girl said obliquely, "Oh, I don't know. Something about the way we got talked to on the phone by your boss. It doesn't matter." Abruptly, she held out her hand. He reflexively took it. "I'm Rachel Rosen. I guess you're Mr. Deckard." "This is not my idea," he said. "Is it true, Mr. Deckard, that you're a bounty hunter?" He shrugged, and with reluctance, nodded. "You have no difficulty viewing an android as inert," the girl said, "so you can retire it, as they say." "Do you have the group selected out for me? I'd like to—" He broke off, because all at once he had seen their animals. A powerful corporation, he realized, would of course be able to afford this. In the back of his mind, evidently, he had anticipated such a collection. It was not surprise that he felt, but more a sort of yearning. He quietly walked away from the girl toward the closest pen. Already he could smell them, the several scents of the creatures, standing or sitting, or in the case of what appeared to be a raccoon, asleep. Never in his life had he actually seen a raccoon. In an automatic response, he reached into his pocket for his much-thumbed copy of Sydney's Animal and Fowl catalog and looked up raccoon with all its sublistings. The list prices naturally appeared in italics. None existed on the market for sale at any figure. Sydney's catalog simply listed the price at which the last transaction involving a raccoon had taken place. It was astronomical. "His name is Bill," the girl said from behind him. "Bill the raccoon. We acquired him just last year from a subsidiary corporation." She pointed past him, and he then perceived the armed company guards, standing with their machine guns, the rapid-fire little light Skoda issue. The eyes of the guards had been fastened on him since his car landed. And, he thought, my car is clearly marked as a police vehicle. "A major manufacturer of androids," he said thoughtfully, "invests its surplus capital on living animals." "Look at the owl," Rachel Rosen said. "Here, I'll wake it up for you." She started toward a small, distant cage, in the center of which jutted up a branching dead tree. "There are no owls," he started to say. "We all know that owls were the first animals to die out. Sydney's," he thought, "they listed in their catalog as extinct. The tiny, precise type, the E, again and again throughout the catalog." As the girl walked ahead of him, he checked to see, and he was right. Sydney's never makes a mistake, he said to himself. We know that, too. What else can we depend on? "It's artificial," he said, with sudden realization. His disappointment welled up, keen and intense. "No." She smiled, and he saw that she had small, even teeth, as white as her eyes and hair were black. "But Sydney's listing," he said, trying to show her the catalog, to prove it to her. The girl said, "We don't buy from Sydney's or from any animal dealer. All our purchases are from private parties, and the prices we pay aren't reported." She added, "Also, we have our own naturalists. They're now working up in Canada. There's still a good deal of forest left, comparatively speaking, anyhow. Enough for small animals, and once in a while, a bird." For a long time, he stood gazing at the owl, who dozed on its perch. 1,000 thoughts came into his mind, thoughts about the war, about the days when owls had fallen from the sky. He remembered how in his childhood it had been discovered that species upon species had become extinct, and how the papes had reported it each day. Foxes one morning, badgers the next, until people had stopped reading the perpetual animal obits. He thought, too, about his need for a real animal. Within him an actual hatred once more manifested itself toward his electric sheep, which he had to tend, had to care about, as if it lived. The tyranny of an object, he thought. It doesn't know I exist. Like the androids, it had no ability to appreciate the existence of another. He had never thought of this before, the similarity between an electric animal and an Andy. "If you sold your owl," he said to the girl, Rachel Rosen, "how much would you want for it? And how much of that down?" "We would never sell our owl." She scrutinized him with a mixture of pleasure and pity, or so he read her expression. "And even if we sold it, you couldn't possibly pay the price. What kind of animal do you have at home?" "A sheep," he said, "a black-faced Suffolk ewe." "Well, then you should be happy." "I'm happy. It's just that I always wanted an owl, even back before they all dropped dead." He corrected himself, "all but yours." Breaking away from the sight, he said, "I'd like to test out the selection now. Can we go downstairs?" "My uncle took the call from your superior." "You're a family? A corporation this large is a family affair?" Continuing her sentence, Rachel said, "Uncle Eldon should have an android group and a control group set up by now, so let's go." She strode toward the elevator, hands again thrust violently in the pockets of her coat. She did not look back, and he hesitated for a moment, feeling annoyance, before he at last trailed after her. "What have you got against me?" he asked her, as together they descended. She reflected as if up to now she hadn't known. Well, you, a little police department employee, are in a unique position. Know what I mean? She gave him a malice-filled sidelong glance. How much of your current output consists of types equipped with the Nexus 6 brain unit? All, Rachel said. Well, I'm sure the Voight-Kampff scale will work with them. And if it doesn't, we'll have to withdraw all Nexus 6 types from the market. Her black eyes flamed up. She glowered at him as the elevator ceased descending and its doors slid back. A man, dapper and lean and elderly, approached them, hand extended. On his face a harried expression showed, as if everything recently had begun happening too fast.
I'm Meldon Rosen,
he explained to Rick as they shook hands. Indicating his department briefcase, Rick said, I'm ready to start. The senior Rosen's nervousness buoyed up his own confidence. They're afraid of me, he realized with a start. Rachel Rosen included. I can probably force them to abandon manufacture of their Nexus 6 types. What I do during the next hour will affect the structure of their operation. It could conceivably determine the future of the Rosen Association here in the United States, in Russia, and on Mars. I wouldn't worry if I were you, Rick said, as the two Rosens led him down a highly illuminated wide corridor to a chic living room-ish cubicle furnished with carpeting, lamps, couch, and modern little end tables. From his opened briefcase, he fished out the Voight-Kampff apparatus, seated himself at a nearby rosewood coffee table, and began to assemble the rather simple polygraphic instruments. You may send the first testee in, he informed Eldon Rosen, who now looked more haggard than ever. I'd like to watch, Rachel said, also seating herself. I've never seen an empathy test being administered. What do those things you have there measure? Rick said, This. He held up the flat adhesive disc with its trailing wires, measures capillary dilation in the facial area. We know this to be a primary autonomic response, the so-called shame or blushing reaction to a morally shocking stimulus. It can't be controlled voluntarily, as can skin conductivity, respiration, and cardiac rate. He showed her the other instrument, a pencil beam light. This records fluctuations of tension within the eye muscles. Simultaneous with the blush phenomenon, there generally can be found a small but detectable movement of, and these can't be found in androids, Rachel interrupted. They're not engendered by the stimuli questions, no, although biologically they exist, potentially. Rachel said, Give me the test. Why? Rick said, puzzled. Speaking up, Eldon Rosen said hoarsely, We selected her as your first subject. She may be an android. We're hoping you can tell. He seated himself in a series of clumsy motions, got out a cigarette, lit it, and fixedly watched. The small beam of white light shone steadily into the left eye of Rachel Rosen, and against her cheek the wire mesh disc adhered. She seemed calm. Seated where he could catch the readings on the 2 gauges of the Voight-Kampff testing apparatus, Rick said, I'm going to outline a number of social situations. You are to express your reaction to each as quickly as possible. You will be timed, of course. And of course, my verbal responses won't count. It's solely the eye muscle and capillary reaction that you'll use as indices. But I'll answer. I want to go through this, and... She broke off. Go ahead, Mr. Deckard. Rick, selecting question 3 on his list, said, You are given a calfskin wallet on your birthday. Both gauges immediately registered past the green and onto the red. The needles swung violently, and then subsided. I wouldn't accept it. Also, I'd report the person who gave it to me to the police. After making a jot of notation, Rick continued, turning to the 8th question of the Voight-Kampff profile scale. You have a little boy, and he shows you his butterfly collection, including his killing jar. I'd take him to the doctor. Rachel's voice was low but firm. Again, the twin gauges registered, but this time not so far. He made a note of that, too. In a magazine, you come across a full-page color picture of a nude girl. Is this testing whether I'm an android? Rachel asked tartly, or whether I'm homosexual? The gauges did not register. He continued, Your husband likes the picture. Still, the gauges failed to indicate a reaction. The girl is lying face down on a large and beautiful bearskin rug. The gauges remained inert, and he said to himself, "An android response, failing to detect the major element, the dead animal pelt. Its mind, is concentrating on other factors." Your husband hangs the picture up on the wall of his study. He finishes, and this time the needles moved. "I certainly wouldn't let him." "Okay, now consider this. You're reading a novel written in the old days before the war. The characters are visiting Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco. They become hungry and enter a seafood restaurant. One of them orders lobster, and the chef drops the lobster into the tub of boiling water while the characters watch." "Oh, God, that's awful. Did they really do that? It's depraved. You mean a live lobster?" The gauges, however, did not respond. Formally, a correct response, but simulated. A final question, two-part. You're watching an old movie on TV, a movie from before the war. It shows a banquet in progress. The guests are enjoying raw oysters. "Ugh," Rachel said. The needles swung swiftly. The entree consists of boiled dog stuffed with rice. The needles moved less this time, less than they had for the raw oysters. Are raw oysters more acceptable to you than a dish of boiled dog? Evidently not. He put his pencil down, shut off the beam of light, and removed the adhesive patch from her cheek. He turned to her. "You're an android."
BBC Radio 7 in the seventh dimension. A whole hour of great science fiction and fantasy.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'm Toby Haydock, and I come bearing gifts, so beware. What? Oh, Greeks! Oh, no, you'll be fine then. Inserting themselves into your cerebral cortex tonight. 2 short sci-fi readings as we reach the 3rd episodes of both Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and Brave New World. Then the Martian fleet is on its way to Earth. No, don't panic, not now, but in the fictional future postulated by that genius radio pioneer Charles Chilton in the frankly brilliant Journey into Space, The World in Peril. In a recent survey, 8 out of 10 cat nuns said they preferred the 7th dimension. And now, have you ever been asked the question, do androids dream of electric sheep, and not had a clue what the answer is? Well, have a listen, you might just find out in the first of tonight's readings, which, contains adult themes in a rather grim future.
The elder Rosen said,
"She's not an android."
"I don't believe it," Rick said. "Why would he lie?" Rachel said to Rick fiercely. "If anything, we'd lie the other way." "I want a bone marrow analysis made of you. It can eventually be organically determined whether you're android or not. It's slow and painful, admittedly, but legally I can't be forced to undergo a bone marrow test. That's been established in the courts. Self-incrimination."
"The issue is not the legality of the bone marrow analysis," Eldon Rosen said. "The issue is that your empathy delineation test failed in response to my niece. I can explain why she scored as an android might. Rachel grew up aboard Salander 3. She was born on it. She spent 14 of her 18 years living off its tape library and what the 9 other crew members, all adults, knew about Earth."
"You would have retired me," Rachel said over her shoulder. "In a police dragnet, I would have been killed."
"The public," Eldon Rosen added, "isn't supposed to know that androids are on Earth in our midst. What were your instructions if you wound up designating a human as android?
That's a departmental matter. He began restoring his testing gear to his briefcase. The two Rosens watched silently. Obviously, I was told to cancel further testing, as I'm now doing. If it failed once, there's no point in going on. He snapped the briefcase shut.
Do you realize that your police department, others as well, may have retired, very probably have retired, authentic human beings with underdeveloped empathetic ability, such as my innocent niece here? Your position, Mr. Deckard, is extremely bad morally.
We have you, Mr. Deckard. She pointed toward the ceiling, and Rick saw the camera lens. His massive error in dealing with the Rosens had been recorded. Rachel, leaning toward Rick, said, "How would you like to own an owl?" Tension of a kind he had never felt before manifested itself inside him. It exploded, leisurely, in every part of his body. "You're practically there, Mr. Deckard. You practically have your owl." To Eldon Rosen, she said, "He's a bounty hunter, remember? So he lives off the bounty he makes, not his salary. Isn't that so, Mr. Deckard?" He nodded. "How many androids escaped this time?" Presently he said, 8, originally. 2 have already been retired, by someone else, not me. You get how much for each android? Shrugging, he said, "It varies." If you have no test you can administer, then there is no way you can identify an android. And if there's no way you can identify an android, there's no way you can collect your bounty. So if the Voight-Kampff scale has to be abandoned, a new scale will replace it. This has happened before. Eventually, of course, the Voight-Kampff scale will become obsolete. Rachel agreed, but not now. We've satisfied ourselves that it will delineate the Nexus 6 types, and we'd like you to proceed on that basis in your own peculiar work.
Tell him he can have his owl,
Eldon Rosen grated. You can have the owl, Rachel said, still eyeing him. The one up on the roof, Scrappy. But we will want to mate it if we can get our hands on a male, and any offspring will be ours. That has to be absolutely understood. I'll divide the brood. No, Rachel said instantly. Behind her, Eldon Rosen shook his head, backing her up.
That way you'd have claim to the sole bloodline of owls for the rest of eternity.
Give me some time. Okay, we'll leave you in here, where it's comfortable. As Rachel started to close the door after herself and her uncle, Rick said starkly, You managed to set me up perfectly. You have it on tape that I missed on you. You know that my job depends on the use of the Voight-Kampff scale, and you own that goddamn owl. Your owl, dear, remember? We'll tie your home address around its leg and have it fly down to San Francisco. It'll meet you there when you get off work. It, he thought. She keeps calling the owl it, not her. Just a second, he said. Pausing at the door, Rachel said, You've decided? I want, he said, opening his briefcase, to ask you one more question from the Voight-Kampff scale. Sit down again. Rachel glanced at her uncle. He nodded, and she grudgingly returned, seating herself with the testing equipment as before. Rachel stared into the beam of light rigidly, an expression of extreme distaste on her face. My briefcase, Rick said, as he rummaged for the Voight-Kampff forms. Nice, isn't it? Department issue. Well, Rachel said remotely. Baby hide, Rick said. He stroked the black leather surface of the briefcase. 100% genuine human baby hide. He saw the 2 dial indicators gyrate frantically, but only after a pause. The reaction had come, but too late. Thanks, Miss Rosen, he said, and gathered together the equipment again. He had concluded his retesting. That's all. You're leaving? Yes, I'm satisfied. What about the other 9 subjects? The scale has been adequate in your case. It's clearly still effective. To Eldon Rosen, who slumped morosely by the door of the room, he said, Does she know? Sometimes they didn't. False memories had been tried various times, generally in the mistaken idea that through them reactions to testing would be altered. Eldon Rosen said,
"No, we programmed her completely. But I think toward the end, she suspected."
To the girl, he said,
"You guessed when he asked for one more try."
Pale, Rachel nodded fixedly.
"Don't be afraid of him. You're not an escaped android on Earth illegally. You're the property of the Rosen Association, used as a sales device for prospective emigrants."
He walked to the girl, put his hand comfortingly on her shoulder. At the touch, the girl flinched. "He's right. I'm not going to retire you, Miss Rosen. Good day." He started toward the door, then halted briefly. To the two of them he said, "Is the owl genuine?" Rachel glanced swiftly at the elder Rosen.
"He's leaving anyhow," Eldon Rosen said. "It doesn't matter. The owl is artificial. There are no owls."
Rick muttered, and stepped numbly out into the corridor. Rachel, he realized. She must be a Nexus 6. I'm seeing one of them for the first time. And they damn near did it. They came awfully damn close to undermining the Voight-Kampff scale, the only method we have for detecting them. And I have to face 6 more of them, he reflected, before I'm finished. He would earn the bounty money, every cent, assuming he made it through alive. After parking the department's speedy, beefed-up hovercar on the roof of the San Francisco Hall of Justice on Lombard Street, Rick Deckard, briefcase in hand, descended to the office of his boss, Harry Bryant. Bryant said,
"You'll be trying for Polikoff first, the one that lasered Dave. Best to get him right out of it, since he knows we got him listed. And one more thing. A Soviet cop from the WPO is on his way here. He's aboard an Aeroflot rocket that'll touch down at the public field here in about an hour. Sandor Kadalyi, his name is."
"What's he want?" Rarely, if ever, did WPO cops show up in San Francisco.
WPO is enough interested in the new Nexus 6 types that they want a man of theirs to be with you. It's for you to decide when and if he can be of value.
"What about the bounty?"
"You won't have to split it,"
Bryant said, and smiled creakily. For his first try at the android, Rick flew to Polikoff's apartment building in the Tenderloin. What a grimy place, he observed as he walked across the roof to the elevator. Abandoned animal pens, encrusted with months of dust. By elevator, he descended to Polikoff's floor, found the hall unit, like a subterranean cave. The Voight-Kampff empathy test had been administered to Polikoff, and had proved him to be an android, so that part could be bypassed, and he could go directly to the task of destroying him. Using an infinity key, which analyzed and opened all forms of locks known, he entered Polikoff's apartment, laser beam in hand. No Polikoff. Only semi-ruined furniture, a place of rubbish and decay. "I knew it," he said to himself. "Well, there goes the first $1,000 bounty. Probably skipped all the way to the Antarctic Circle, out of my jurisdiction. Another bounty hunter from another police department will retire Polikoff and claim the money. On, I suppose, to the Andes who haven't been warned." Back again on the roof, in his hovercar, he took a call from Harry Bryant.
"Mr. Kadalyi is already here. He'll fly over and meet you where you are now."
Almost immediately, a hovercar taxi spun down to land on the roof a few yards off. From it, a red-faced, cherubic-looking man, evidently in his mid-50s, wearing a heavy and impressive Russian-style greatcoat, stepped out, and smiling, his hand extended, approached Rick's car.
"Mr. Deckard,"
the man asked,
"I'm Sandor Kadalyi,"
and opened the car door to squeeze in beside Rick. As he shook hands with Kadalyi, Rick noticed that the WPO representative carried an unusual type of laser tube, a subform which he had never seen before.
"Oh, this,"
Kadalyi said.
"Interesting, isn't it?"
He tugged it from his belt holster.
"I got this on Mars."
"I thought I knew every handgun made, even those manufactured at and for use in the colonies."
We made this ourselves,"
Kadalyi said, beaming like a Slavic Santa, his ruddy face inscribed with pride.
You like it? What is different about it, functionally, is, here, take it.
He passed the gun over to Rick, who inspected it expertly by way of years of experience.
Press the trigger.
Aiming upward, out of the window of the car, Rick squeezed the trigger of the weapon. Nothing happened. No beam emerged. Puzzled, he turned to Kadalyi.
The triggering circuit, Kadalyi said cheerfully, isn't attached. It remains with me. You see? Ha 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 ha.
He opened his hand, revealing a tiny unit.
And I can also direct it within certain limits, irrespective of where it's aimed.
You're Polikov, the android. You're not from the Soviet police. Rick, with his toe, pressed the emergency button on the floor of his car.
I want my laser tube fire,
Kadalyi Polikov said, switching on and off the miniaturized triggering device in the palm of his hand. A cinewave, Rick said, that phases out laser emanation and spreads the beam into ordinary light.
Then I'll have to break your pencil neck.
The android dropped the device and, with a snarl, grabbed with both hands for Rick's throat. As the android's hand sank into his throat, Rick fired his regulation-issue old-style pistol from its shoulder holster. The .38 Magnum slug struck the android in the head. The Nexus 6 unit, which operated it, blew into pieces, creating a raging, mad wind which carried throughout the car. The retired remains of the android rocked back, collided with the car door, bounced off, and struck heavily against him. He found himself struggling to shove the twitching remnants of the android away. Shakily, he at last reached for the car phone, called in to the Hall of Justice.
Tell Harry Bryant that I got Polikov.
You got Polikov. He'll understand that, will he?
Yes, Rick said.
He'll understand.
Rick's car phone buzzed. He picked up the receiver. The police operator said,
Mr. Deckard, a call for you from Seattle, from the Rosen Association.
Rachel Rosen's face appeared on the tiny screen.
Hello, Officer Deckard.
Her tone seemed placating. That caught his attention.
Are you busy right now, or can I talk to you?
Go ahead, he said.
We of the Association have been discussing your situation regarding the escaped Nexus 6 types, and knowing them as we do, feel that you'll have better luck if one of us works in conjunction with you.
By doing what?
Well, by one of us coming along with you when you go out looking for them.
Why? What would you add? Rachel said,
The Nexus 6s would be wary at being approached by a human, but if another Nexus 6 made the contact...
You mean specifically yourself? She nodded, her face sober.
I really think you need me.
I doubt it. I'll think it over and call you back. At some distant, unspecified future time, he said to himself, or more likely, never. That's all I need, Rachel Rosen popping up through the dust at every step. He started to hang up.
Without me, one of them will get you before you can get it.
Goodbye, he said. What kind of world is it, he asked himself, when an android phones up a bounty hunter and offers him assistance? I'll try one more, Andy, before I ask Rachel for help, he decided. If Miss Luft proves exceptionally hard, but he had an intuition she wouldn't. Polikov had been the rough one. The others, unaware that anyone actively hunted them, would crumble in succession, plugged like a file of ducks. As Rick entered the opera house, he recognized the music, Mozart's The Magic Flute, the first act in its final scenes. He seated himself in a dress circle seat and made himself comfortable. Leaning forward and peering, Rick studied Pamina in her heavy, convoluted robes. He re-examined the poop sheet, then leaned back, satisfied. This is Luba Luft, he thought, the second android on his list. On the stage she sang, and he found himself surprised at the quality of her voice. The Rosen Association built her well, he had to admit. At the end of the rehearsal, Rick made his way backstage to the dressing rooms. He followed the tail end of the cast, taking his time and thinking, it's better this way, getting it immediately over with. I'll spend as short a time talking to her and testing her as possible. He soon found a door with a handwritten note tacked to it, reading, Miss Luft, private. He knocked. "Come in." He entered. The girl sat at her dressing table, a much-handled cloth-bound score open on her knees, marking here and there with a ballpoint pen. She still wore her costume and makeup. "Yes," she said, looking up. The stage makeup enlarged her eyes. Enormous and hazel, they fixed on him and did not waver. "I am busy, as you can see." Rick said, "You compare favorably to Schwarzkopf." "Who are you?" Her tone held cold reserve, and that other cold which he had encountered in so many androids. Always the same, great intellect, ability to accomplish much, but also this. He deplored it, and yet, without it, he could not track them down. "I'm from the San Francisco Police Department. I've been sent here to administer a standard personality profile test to you. It won't take more than a few minutes." He got out the Voight-Kampff instruments, began setting them up. "An IQ test?" "No, empathy."
"I'll have to put on my glasses."
She reached to open a drawer of her dressing table. "If you can mark the score without your glasses, you can take this test. Meanwhile," he got up and walked to her, and, bending, pressed the adhesive pad of sensitive grids against her deeply tinted cheek. "And this light," he said, adjusting the angle of the pencil beam so that it shone directly into her eye.
"This is a test to see if I'm an android. Do you think I'm an android? Is that it?"
Her voice faded almost to extinction.
"I'm not an android. I haven't even been on Mars. I've never even seen an android."
Her elongated lashes shuddered involuntarily.
"Your job is to kill them, isn't it? You're what they call,
She tried to remember. "A bounty hunter. Now please listen carefully. You're sitting watching TV, and suddenly you discover a wasp crawling on your wrist." He checked his watch, counting the seconds, and checked too with the twin dials.
"What's a wasp?"
Luba Luff asked. "A stinging bug that flies."
"Oh, how strange."
Her immense eyes widened with childlike acceptance, as if he had revealed the cardinal mystery of creation.
"Do they still exist? I've never seen one."
"They died out because of the dust. Don't you really know what a wasp is? You must have been alive when there were wasps. That's only been—"
"Tell me the German word."
He tried to think of the German word for wasp, but couldn't. "Your English is perfect," he said angrily.
"It has to be, for roles, for Purcell and Walton and Vaughan Williams. But my vocabulary isn't large."
She glanced at him shyly. Vespa," he said, remembering the German word.
"Yes, eine Wespe," she laughed. "And what was the question? I forget already."
"Let's try another." Impossible now to get a meaningful response. He could not fathom, for the life of him, if Luba Luft's semantic fog had purpose. He decided to try another question. What else could he do? "You're dating a man, and he asks you to visit his apartment. While you're there—"
"Oh, nein, I wouldn't be there. That's easy to answer."
Nervously fluttering, she rubbed her cheek and detached the adhesive disc. It dropped to the floor, skidded, and rolled under her dressing table.
"Ach Gott,"
she muttered, bending to retrieve it. A ripping sound, that of cloth tearing, her elaborate costume. "I'll get it," he said, and lifted her aside. He knelt down, groped under the dressing table until his fingers located the disc. When he stood up, he found himself looking into a laser tube.
"Your questions," Luba Luft said in a crisp, formal voice, "began to do with sex. I thought they would, finally. You are not from the police department. You are a sexual deviant."
"You can look at my identification." He reached toward his coat pocket. His hand, he saw, had begun to shake.
"If you reach in there, I will kill you."
"You will, anyhow." He wondered how it would have worked out if he had waited until Rachel Rosen could join him. Well, no use dwelling on that.
"Let me see some more of your questions."
She held out her hand, and reluctantly he passed her the sheets.
"In a magazine, you come across a full-page color picture of a nude girl. Well, that's one. You became pregnant by a man who has promised to marry you. The man goes off with another woman, your best friend. You get an abortion. The pattern of your questioning is obvious. I am going to call the police."
Still holding the laser tube in his direction, she crossed the room, picked up the vidphone, dialed the operator.
"Connect me with the San Francisco Police Department. I need a policeman."
"What you're doing," Rick said with relief, "is the best idea possible." Yet it seemed strange to him that Luba had decided to do this. Why didn't she simply kill him? A few minutes later, during which Luba carefully kept the laser tube on him, a large harness bull arrived in his archaic blue uniform with gun and star.
"I'm Officer Krams. Let's see your identification,"
the harness bull said to Rick, his hand extended. As he got out his ID, Rick said, "I'm a bounty hunter with the department."
"I know all the bounty hunters,"
the harness bull said as he examined Rick's wallet.
"And I've never heard of you."
He handed Rick's ID back to him. "Call Inspector Bryant," Rick said.
"There isn't any Inspector Bryant,"
the harness bull said. It came to Rick what was going on. "You're an android," he said to the harness bull, "like Miss Luft. Look, I want to get to the Hall of Justice and get this straightened out." He started toward the door of the dressing room, his briefcase gripped.
"I'll search you first."
Officer Krams deftly frisked him and came up with Rick's service pistol and laser tube. He appropriated both, after a moment of sniffing the muzzle of the pistol.
"This has been fired recently,"
he said. "I retired an Andy just now," Rick said. "The remains are still in my car, up on the roof." As the two of them started from the dressing room, Miss Luft followed as far as the door.
"He won't come back again, will he, officer? I'm really afraid of him. He's so strange."
"If he's got the body of someone he killed upstairs in his car," Officer Krams said, "he won't be coming back."
The patrol car zummed up from the roof and headed south. Something, Rick noticed, was not as it should be. Officer Krams had steered the car in the wrong direction. The Hall of Justice is north, on Lombard.
"That's the old Hall of Justice,"
Officer Krams said.
"The new one is on mission. That old building, it's disintegrating, it's a ruin. Nobody's used that for years. Has it been that long since you last got booked?"
"Take me there, to Lombard Street." Rick understood it all now, saw what the androids, working together, had achieved. He would not live beyond this ride. For him, it was the end. The Mission Street Hall of Justice building, onto the roof of which the hovercar descended, jutted up in a series of Baroque, ornamented spires, complicated and modern. The handsome structure struck Rick Deckard as attractive, except for one thing. He had never seen it before. The police hovercar landed, and a few minutes later he found himself being booked. "It makes no sense," he said to himself. "Who are these people? If this place has always existed, why didn't we know about it? And why don't they know about us? Two parallel police agencies," he said to himself, "ours and this one, but never coming in contact, as far as I know, until now." A man, not in uniform, approached Rick Deckard at a measured, unruffled pace, gazing at him curiously. "What's this one?" he asked Officer Krams.
"Suspected homicide,"
Krams answered.
"There's a body in his car, but he claims it's an android. We're checking it out, giving it a bone marrow analysis at the lab, and he's posing as a police officer, a bounty hunter, to gain access to a woman's dressing room in order to ask her suggestive questions."
"All right." The senior police official, not in uniform, blue-eyed, with a narrow, flaring nose and inexpressive lips, eyed Rick, then reached for Rick's briefcase. "What do you have in here, Mr. Deckard?" He watched as the police official rummaged through the contents of the briefcase, examining each item. "Are you an android, Mr. Deckard? The reason I ask is that several times in the past we've had escaped Andys turn up posing as out-of-state bounty hunters, here in pursuit of a suspect." Rick said, "I'm not an android. You can administer the Voight-Kampff test to me. I've taken it before, and I don't mind taking it again." "Come into my office. I'd like to talk with you further. My name is Garland." He held out his hand, and they shook, briefly. "Sit down," Garland said, as he opened his office door and pushed behind a large uncluttered desk. Rick seated himself, facing the desk. "This Voight-Kampff test," Garland said, that you mentioned? He indicated Rick's briefcase. All that material you carry. He filled and lit a pipe, puffed for a moment. It's an analytical tool for detecting Andes? It's our basic test, the only one we currently employ, the only one capable of distinguishing the new Nexus 6 brain unit. You haven't heard of this test? I've heard of several profile analysis scales for use with androids, but not that one. He continued to study Rick intently, his face turgid. Rick could not fathom what Garland was thinking. Those smudged carbon flimsies, Garland continued, that you have there in your briefcase. Polikov, Miss Luft, your assignments? The next one is me. The office door opened, and a tall, fleshless man with hard-etched features wearing horn-rimmed glasses appeared. Garland rose, indicating Rick. Phil Resch, Rick Deckard. You're both bounty hunters, and it's probably time you met. Here, Phil, take a look at his schedule. This one comes up next. He handed Phil Resch the sheet, which Rick had been examining, that with his own description. Phil Resch said, mostly to himself, I assume you haven't had an opportunity to test out Inspector Garland here. Of course not, Garland interjected, his face wrinkled with indignation. What test do you use? Phil Resch asked Rick. He did not seem afraid of his superior, despite Garland's palpable anger. The Voight-Kampff scale. It's an empathy test. Androids lack it. I don't think you understand the situation, Garland said. This man, or android, Rick Deckard, comes to us from a phantom, hallucinatory, non-existent police agency allegedly operating out of the old departmental headquarters on Lombard. He's never heard of us, and we've never heard of him. Yet, ostensibly, we're both working the same side of the street. He employs a test we've never heard of. The list he carries around isn't of androids, it's a list of human beings. He's already killed once, at least once. And if Miss Luft hadn't gotten to a phone, he probably would have killed her, and then eventually he would have come sniffing around after me. Phil Resch said. Is that all you have to say? The intercom came on, and a female voice said, Inspector Garland, the lab report on Mr. Polikov's corpse is ready. The body we found in Mr. Deckard's car. I think we should hear it, Phil Resch said. Garland glanced at him, seething. Then he bent, pressed the key of the intercom. Let's have it. The bone marrow test shows that Mr. Polikov was a humanoid robot. Garland settled back in his seat, grimly contemplating the far wall. I think now, Rick said to Garland, you're going to have to sit still for the test, either Resch's or mine, in view of your lab's report on Polikov. Phil Resch left the room to fetch his testing equipment. Garland turned to Rick. He doesn't know. He doesn't suspect. He doesn't have the slightest idea. Otherwise, he couldn't live out a life as a bounty hunter, a human occupation, hardly an android occupation. Garland gestured toward Rick's briefcase. The others on your list, the other suspects you're supposed to test and retire. I know them all. He paused, then said, we all came here together on the same ship from Mars, not Resch. He stayed behind another week, receiving the synthetic memory system. The office door opened. Phil Resch stood outlined, carrying a device which trailed wires. Here we are, he said, closing the door after him. He seated himself, plugging the device into the electrical outlet. Bringing out his right hand, Garland pointed at Resch. At once, Resch, and also Rick Deckard, rolled from their chairs and onto the floor. At the same time, Resch yanked a laser tube, and as he fell, fired at Garland. The laser beam, aimed with skill based on years of training, bifurcated Inspector Garland's head. He slumped forward, and from his hand, his miniaturized laser beam rolled across the surface of his desk. The corpse teetered on its chair, and then, like a sack of eggs, it slid to one side and crashed to the floor. It forgot, Resch said, rising to his feet, that this is my job. I can almost foretell what an android is going to do. I suppose you can too. He put his laser beam away, bent, and with curiosity examined the body of his superior. What did it say to you while I was gone? That it was an android, and you... Rick broke off. You would detect it in a few more minutes. Anything else? This building is android-infested. You realize, don't you, that you're going to have to double back to the Opera House and get Luba Luft before anyone here has a chance to warn her as to how this came out. Warn it, I should say. On their way to the War Memorial Opera House, Resch was increasingly preoccupied. Listen, Deckard, after we retire Luba Luft, I want you to... His voice, husky and tormented, broke off. You know, give me that empathy test you have. See about me. We can worry about that later. You don't want me to take it, do you? I guess you know what the results will be. Garland must have told you something. Something which I don't know. It's going to be hard even for the two of us to take out Luba Luft. She's more than I can handle anyhow. Let's keep our attention focused on that. They flew on then, in silence. At the Opera House, they discovered that Luba Luft had gone to see an Edvard Munch exhibition at the nearby museum. It didn't take them long to find her. Holding a printed catalogue, Luba Luft stood absorbed in the picture before her, a drawing of a young girl, hands clasped together, seated on the edge of a bed, an expression of bewildered wonder and new, groping awe imprinted on the face. "Want me to buy it for you?" Rick said to Luba Luft. He stood beside her, holding laxly onto her upper arm. "It's not for sale." Luba Luft glanced at him idly, then violently as she recognized him. Her eyes faded and the color dimmed from her face, leaving it cadaverous, as if already starting to decay. "I thought they arrested you. Do you mean they let you go?" "Miss Luft, this is Mr. Resch. Phil Resch. Phil Resch, this is the quite well-known opera singer, Luba Luft." To Luba he said, "The harness bull that arrested me is an android. So was his superior. Did you know, an Inspector Garland? He told me that you all came here in one ship, as a group." "The police department which you called," Phil Resch said to her, "operating out of a building on mission, is the organizing agency by which it would appear your group keeps in touch. They even feel confident enough to hire a human bounty hunter. Evidently, you," Luba Luft said, "you're not human, no more than I am. You're an android too." An interval of silence passed. "Well, we'll deal with that at the proper time. Let's take her to my car." At the end of the corridor, near the elevators, a little store-like affair had been set up. It sold prints and art books, and Luba halted there, tarrying. "Listen," she said to Rick. Some of the color had returned to her face. Once more she looked, at least briefly, alive. "Buy me a reproduction of that picture I was looking at when you found me, the one of the girl sitting on the bed." After a pause, Rick said to the clerk, "Do you have a print of Munch's puberty?"
"Only in this book of his collected work,"
the clerk said, lifting down a handsome, glossy volume.
$25.
"I'll take it." He reached for his wallet. Phil Resch said, "My departmental budget could never in a million years be stretched." "My own money," Rick said. He handed the woman the bills and Luba the book. "Now let's get started down," he said to her and Phil Resch.
"It's very nice of you,"
Luba said as they entered the elevator.
"There's something very strange and touching about humans. An android would never have done that."
She stared icily at Phil Resch. "It wouldn't have occurred to him. As he said, never in a million years." She continued to gaze at Resch, now with manifold hostility and aversion. "I really don't like androids. Ever since I got here from Mars, my life has consisted of imitating the human, doing what she would do, imitating, as far as I am concerned, a superior life form." To Phil Resch, she said, "Isn't that how it's been with you, Resch? Trying to be—" "I can't take this!" Phil Resch dug into his coat, groped. "No," Rick said. He grabbed at Phil Resch's hand. Resch retreated, eluding him. "We have to do the test."
"But it's admitted it's an android. We don't have to wait."
"But to retire it because it's needling you, gimme that!" He struggled to pry the laser tube away from Resch. The tube remained in Resch's possession. He circled back within the cramped elevator, evading him, his attention on Luba Luft only. "Okay, retire it. Kill it now. Show it that it's right." He saw then that Resch meant to. "Wait!" Phil Resch fired, and at the same instant, Luba Luft, in a spasm of frantic, hunted fear, twisted and spun away, dropping as she did so. The beam missed its mark, but as Resch lowered it, burrowed a narrow hole silently into her stomach. She began to scream. She lay crouched against the wall of the elevator, screaming. Like the Munch picture, Rick thought to himself, and with his own laser tube, killed her. Luba Luft's body fell forward, face down, in a heap. It did not even tremble. With his laser tube, Rick systematically burned into blurred ash the book of pictures which he had just a few minutes ago bought Luba. He did the job thoroughly, saying nothing. Phil Resch watched without understanding, his face showing his perplexity. As he and Resch walked back to the hovercar, Resch said, "I'll give you my laser tube now, so you won't have to worry about my reaction to the test, in terms of your own personal safety." He held out the tube, and Rick accepted it. "You'll tell me the truth, won't you? If I'm an android, you'll tell me, because I really want to know. I have to know." Opening his briefcase, Rick fished out his test gear. Afterward, Rick sat in silence for a time. Then he began gathering his gear together, stuffing it back in the briefcase. "I can tell by your face," Phil Resch said. He exhaled in absolute, weightless, almost convulsive relief. "Okay, you can give me my gun back." "Evidently you were right about Garland's motives, wanting to split us up, what you said." Rick was once again hauling out his test gear. "I thought the test was over." "I just want to ask myself a question, and I want you to tell me what the needles register. Just give me the calibration. I can compute it." He plastered the adhesive disc against his cheek, arranged the beam of light until it fed directly into his eye. "Are you ready? Watch the dials." Sure, Rick," Phil Resch said obligingly. Aloud, Rick said, "I'm going down by elevator with an android I've captured, and suddenly someone kills it without warning." "No particular response." "What did the needles hit?" "The left one 2.8, the right one 3.3. "A female android." "Now they're up to 4.0 and 6, respectively." "That's high enough," Rick said. He removed the wired adhesive disc from his cheek and shut off the beam of light. "Meaning?" "I'm capable of feeling empathy for at least specific, certain androids. Not for all of them, but one or two. For Luba Luft, as an example," he said to himself. Yeah, you're in a spot, Deckard," Phil Resch said. It seemed to amuse him. Rick said, "What should I do?" It's sex." "Sex?"
"Wake up and face yourself, Deckard. You wanted to go to bed with a female type of android. Nothing more, nothing less. Don't let her get you down. Don't kill her and then feel physically attracted. Do it the other way."
Rick stared at him. "Go to bed with her first,
and then kill her,"
Phil Resch said succinctly. His grainy, hardened smile remained. "Phil's a good bounty hunter," Rick realized. His attitude proves it. But am I? Suddenly, for the first time in his life, he had begun to wonder. As soon as he officially quit work that evening, Rick Deckard flew across town to Animal Row, the several blocks of big-time animal dealers with their huge glass windows and lurid signs. The new and horribly unique depression which had floored him earlier in the day had not left. A nattily-dressed new animal salesman chatted to him as he stood gaping with a sort of glazed, meek need at the displays.
"See anything you like?"
Rick said. "I see a lot I like. It's the cost that bothers me." "You tell us the deal you want to make," the salesman said. "What you want to take home with you and how you want to pay for it. We'll take the package to our sales manager and get his big okay." "I've got $3,000 cash." The department, at the end of the day, had paid him his bounty. "How much is that family of rabbits over there?" "Sir, if you have a down payment of $3,000, I can make you the owner of something a lot better than a pair of rabbits. What about a goat? I'd like to see you step up to the goat class, where I feel you belong. Frankly, you look more like a goat man to me." "Is this goat a female?" He had noticed a big black goat standing squarely in the center of its cage. He moved that way, and the salesman accompanied him. The goat, it seemed to Rick, was beautiful. "Yes, this goat is a female, a black Nubian goat, very large, as you can see. This is a superb contender in this year's market, sir, and we're offering her at an attractive, unusually low price." Getting out his creased copy of Sydney's Animal and Fowl Catalog, Rick looked up the listings on goats, black Nubian. On a slip of paper, the salesman scribbled a price, and then, briefly, almost furtively, showed it to Rick. "Too much," Rick said. He took the slip of paper and wrote down a more modest figure. "We couldn't let a goat go for that," the salesman protested. He wrote another figure. "This goat is less than a year old. She has a very long life expectancy." He showed the figure to Rick. "It's a deal," Rick said. He signed the time payment contract, paid over his $3,000, his entire bounty money, as down payment, and shortly found himself standing by his hovercar, rather dazed, as employees of the animal dealer loaded the crate of goat into the car. "I own an animal now," he said to himself. "A living animal, not electric, for the second time in my life." The expense, the contractual indebtedness, appalled him. He found himself shaking. But I had to do it. I have to get my confidence, my faith in myself and my abilities back, or I won't keep my job. My job requires it, he thought, scraping bottom. Prestige. We couldn't go on with the electric sheep any longer. It sapped my morale. Maybe I can tell her that, he decided. Climbing from the car on the roof of his building, he maneuvered the goat cage from the back seat. With wheezing effort, managed to set it down on the roof. The goat, which had slid about during the transfer, regarded him with bright-eyed perspicacity, but made no sound. He descended to his floor, followed a familiar path down the hall to his own door. "Hi." His wife Iran greeted him, busy in the kitchen with dinner. "Why so late tonight?" "Come up on the roof. I want to show you something." "You bought an animal?" She removed her apron, smoothed back her hair reflexively, and followed him out of the apartment. They progressed down the hall with huge, eager strides. "You shouldn't have gotten it without me," Iran gasped. "I have a right to participate in the decision. The most important acquisition will ever—" "I wanted it to be a surprise." "You made some bounty money today," Iran said accusingly. "Yes, I retired 3 Andes." They entered the elevator. "I had to buy this. Something went wrong today. Something about retiring them. It wouldn't have been possible for me to go on without getting an animal." The elevator had reached the roof. He led his wife out into the evening darkness, to the cage. Switching on the spotlights, he pointed to the goat, silent, waiting for her reaction. "Oh, my God," Iran said softly. She walked to the cage, peered in. Then she circled around it, viewing the goat from every angle. "Is it really real?" she asked. "It's not false?" "Absolutely real, unless they swindled me. But that rarely happened. The fine for counterfeiting would be enormous, 2.5 times the full market value of the genuine animal. No, they didn't swindle me." "It's a goat," Iran said. "A black Nubian goat." "Female. So maybe later on we can mate her, and we'll get milk, out of which we can make cheese." "Can we let her out? Put her where the sheep is?" "She ought to be tethered, for a few days at least." Iran said, in an odd little voice,
My life is love and pleasure. An old song by Joseph Strauss, remember? When we first met?
She put her hand gently on his shoulder, leaned toward him, and kissed him.
Much love, and very much pleasure.
Thanks, he said, and hugged her. Does this cure your depression? It cures mine.
Iran said, It certainly does cure my depression. Now we can admit to everybody that the ship is false.
No need to do that.
But we can. See, now we have nothing to hide. What we've always wanted has come true. It's a dream.
Once more she stood on tiptoe, leaning and nimbly kissing him. Her breath, eager and erratic, tickled his neck. She reached then to stab at the elevator button.
Iran, wait. I took a test, one question, and verified it. I've begun to empathize with androids, and look what that means. You said it this morning yourself. Those poor Andes. So you know what I'm talking about. That's why I bought the goat.
What about your job?
Her tone jabbed at him. He blinked.
Your job,
Iran repeated.
What are the monthly payments on the goat?
She held out her hand. Reflexively, he got out the contract which he had signed, and passed it to her.
That much? The interest? Oh, good God, the interest alone. And you did this because you were depressed, not as a surprise for me, as you originally said.
She handed the contract back to him.
Well, it doesn't matter. I'm still glad you got the goat. I love the goat. But it's such an economic burden.
She looked gray.
I can get switched to some other desk. The department does 10 or 11 separate jobs. Animal theft. I could transfer to that.
But the bounty money, we need it, or they'll repossess the goat.
I'll get the contract extended from 36 months to 48.
He whipped out a ballpoint pen, scribbled rapidly on the back of the contract.
That way it'll be $52.50 less a month.
Back in their living room, the vidphone rang.
Oh, if we hadn't come back down here, if we'd stayed up on the roof with the goat, we wouldn't have gotten this call.
Going to the vidphone, Iran said,
Why are you afraid? They're not repossessing the goat, not yet.
She started to lift the receiver.
It's the department. Say I'm not here.
He headed for the bedroom.
Hello?
Iran said into the receiver.
3 more Andes. Rick thought to himself that I should have followed up on today instead of coming home.
On the vidscreen, his boss, Harry Bryant's face had formed, so it was too late to get away. He walked, with stiff leg muscles, back toward the phone.
Yes, he's here,
Iran was saying.
We bought a goat. Come over and see it, Mr. Bryant.
Rick took the receiver from her.
We have a tail on 2 of the remaining androids,
Harry Bryant said.
They can be found at, wait.
Bryant groped about on his desk, at last located the material he wanted. Automatically, Rick searched for his pen. He held the goat payment contract on his knee and prepared to write.
Connapt Building 3967C. Get over there as soon as you can. We have to assume they know about the ones you picked off, Garland and Luft and Polikoff. That's why they've taken unlawful flight.
Unlawful, Rick repeated, to save their lives.
Iran says you bought a goat? Just today, after you left work?
On my way home.
Well, I'll come and look at your goat after you retire the remaining androids. I can't believe you got 3 in one day.
3 is enough for one day. I can't do anything more. I have to rest.
By tomorrow they'll be gone, out of our jurisdiction.
Not that soon. They'll still be around.
You get over there tonight, before they dig in. They won't expect you to move in so fast.
Sure they will. They'll be waiting for me.
Got the shakes?
I haven't got the shakes.
Then what's wrong?
Okay, I'll get over there. He started to hang up the phone.
Let me know as soon as you get results. I'll be here in my office.
If I get them, I'm going to buy a sheep.
You have a sheep. You've had one as long as I've known you.
It's electric, Rick said. He hung up. He said to himself, a real sheep this time. I have to get one. In compensation.
Connapt 3967C, he reflected, reading it off the back of the contract. That's out in the suburbs. It's mostly abandoned there. A good place to hide, except for the lights at night. I probably can't retire them both, even if I try. I'm too tired. But I know where I can get help. Offered to me before, but declined. He reached the roof, and a moment later sat in the darkness of his hovercar, dialing.
Rosen Association,
the answering service girl said. Rachel Rosen, he said. 10 minutes later, the small dark face of the android Rachel Rosen appeared on the vid screen.
Hello, Mr. Deckard. I told you that without me, one of the Nexus 6s would get you before you got it.
You were wrong.
But you are calling. Anyhow, do you want me to come down there to San Francisco?
Tonight.
No, it's too late. I'll come tomorrow. It's an hour trip.
I have been told I have to get them tonight. Out of the original 8, 3 are left.
You sound like you've had a just awful time.
If you don't fly down here tonight, I'll go after them alone, and I won't be able to retire them. I just bought a goat, with the bounty money from the 3 I did get.
You humans. Goats smell terrible.
I need you, he said. Then said to himself, otherwise, I'm going to die. I know it. And I think you know it, too. I'm wasting my time appealing to you. An android can't be appealed to. There's nothing in there to reach.
Rachel said, I'm sorry, Rick, but I can't do it tonight. It'll have to be tomorrow.
Come down here, he said, and we'll rent a hotel room.
Why?
Something I heard about situations involving human men and android women. Come down here to San Francisco tonight, and I'll give up on the remaining Andes. We'll do something else.
She eyed him, then abruptly said,
Okay, I'll fly down. Where should I meet you?
At the St. Francis Hotel.
In the sumptuous and enormous hotel room, Rick Deckard sat reading the typed carbon sheets on 2 of the 3 remaining androids on his list. Roy and Irmgard Batty. The woman, he decided, looks attractive. Roy Batty, however, is something different, something worse. A pharmacist on Mars, he read. Or at least the android had made use of that cover. In actuality, it had probably been a manual laborer, a field hand, with aspirations for something better. Do androids dream? Rick asked himself. Evidently. That's why they occasionally kill their employers and flee here. The door of the hotel room banged open.
What a flight,
Rachel Rosen said breathlessly, entering in a long fish-scale coat with matching bra and shorts. Her proportions, he noticed, were odd. With her heavy mass of dark hair, her head seemed large, and because of her diminutive breasts, her body assumed a lank, almost childlike stance. But her great eyes, with their elaborate lashes, could only be those of a grown woman. There the resemblance to adolescence ended. She carried, beside her big, ornate mail-pouch purse, a paper bag.
Here, I bought a bottle. Bourbon.
Rick said, The worst of the 8 is still alive, the one who organized them. He held the poop sheet on Roy Batty toward her.
You've located this one?
She asked after reading. I have a Connacht number, out in the suburbs. Rachel held out her hand.
Let's see about the others.
Both females. He passed her the sheets, one dealing with Irmgard Batty, the other an android calling itself Pris Stratton. She had turned pale, and her voice shook. All at once she had become exceptionally unsteady.
Can you get this bourbon open?
She asked.
It's worth a fortune, you realize. It's not synthetic, it's from before the war, made from genuine mash.
Taking the bottle, he opened it, poured bourbon in the 2 tumblers. Tell me what's the matter, he said. Reaching, he took hold of her hand. It felt cold, bony, slightly moist. What upset you?
That last goddamn Nexus 6 type, Rachel said, enunciating with effort, is the same type as I am. Didn't you notice the description? It's of me, too. When you see her, you'll know what I mean.
Why does that bother you so much?
Hell, I'll be along when you retire her.
Maybe not. Maybe I won't find her.
I know Nexus 6 psychology. That's why I'm here. That's why I can help you. They're all holed up together, the last 3 of them, clustered around the deranged one calling himself Roy Batty. He'll be masterminding their crucial all-out final defense.
Her lips twisted.
Oh, Jesus.
Cheer up, he said. He cupped her sharp, small chin in the palm of his hand, lifted her head so that she had to face him. I wonder what it's like to kiss an android, he said to himself. Leaning forward an inch, he kissed her dry lips. No reaction followed. Rachel remained impassive, as if unaffected, and yet he sensed otherwise, or perhaps it was wishful thinking.
I wish that I had known that before I came. I never would have flown down here. I think you're asking too much. You know what I have toward this Pris android?
Empathy, he said. The one thing androids don't have.
Something like that. Identification. There goes I. My God, maybe that's what'll happen. In the confusion, you'll retire me, not her, and she can go back to Seattle and live my life. I never felt this way before. We are machines, stamped out like bottle caps. It's an illusion that I personally really exist. I'm just a representative of a type.
She shuddered.
Forget the 3 Andys. I just want to sleep.
She shut her eyes.
If I die, maybe I'll be born again when the Rosen Association stamps out its next unit of my subtype.
She opened her eyes and glared at him ferociously.
Do you know why I really came here? Why Eldon and the other Rosens, the human ones, wanted me to go along with you?
To observe. To detail exactly what the Nexus 6 does that gives it away on the Voight-Kampff android detection test.
Not just the empathy test. Everything that gives it a different quality. And then I report back. And then we have the Nexus 7. And when that gets caught, we modify again. And eventually the association has a type that can't be distinguished from a human.
She reached out, toyed with a button of his shirt. In slow, facile twists, she began unbuttoning it.
I don't dare go, because androids have no loyalty to one another. And I know that goddamn Pris Stratton will destroy me and occupy my place. See? Take off your coat.
Why?
So we can go to bed. I love you.
Tonight. Sometime, he thought as he clicked off the bedside light. I will retire a Nexus 6, which looks exactly like this naked girl. My good God. I've wound up where Phil Resch said. Go to bed with her first, then kill her. I can't do it, he said, and backed away from the bed.
I wish you could.
Not because of you, because of Pris Stratton, what I have to do to her.
We're not the same. I don't care about Pris Stratton. Listen, go to bed with me, and I'll retire Stratton, okay? Because I can't stand getting this close, and then...
Thank you, he said. Gratitude, undoubtedly because of the bourbon, rose up inside him, constricting his throat. 2, he thought. I now have only 2 to retire. Just the baddies. Would Rachel really do it? Evidently. Androids thought and functioned that way, yet he had never come across anything quite like this.
God damn it. Get into bed,
Rachel said. He got into bed. Afterward, they enjoyed a great luxury. Rick had room service bring up coffee. Rachel said,
Do we really have to go track down these 3 Andys tonight?
Yes, he said. 2 for me to retire, he thought. 1 for you. As Rachel put it, the deal had been made. Gathering a giant white bath towel about her, Rachel said,
Did you enjoy that?
Yes.
Would you ever go to bed with an android again?
If it was a girl. If she resembled you.
Do you know what the lifespan of a humanoid robot such as myself is? I've been in existence 2 years. How long do you calculate I have?
About 2 more years.
They could never solve that problem. I mean, cell replacement, perpetual or anyhow semi-perpetual renewal. Well, so it goes.
Vigorously, she began drying herself. Her face had become expressionless. I'm sorry.
Hell, I'm sorry I mentioned it. Anyhow, it keeps humans from running off and living with an android.
And this is true with you Nexus 6 types, too?
It's the metabolism, not the brain unit.
She trotted out, swept up her underpants, and began to dress. If you weren't an android, if I could legally marry you, I would.
Or we could live in sin, except that I'm not alive.
Legally you're not, but really, you are. Biologically. You're not made out of transistorized circuits like a false animal. You're an organic entity. And in 2 years, he thought, you'll wear out and die. Because we never solved the problem of cell replacement, as you pointed out. He said to himself, so I guess it doesn't matter anyhow. This is my end as a bounty hunter. After the baddies, there won't be any more. Not after this. Tonight. They dressed and took the elevator to the roof. They both got into Rick's hover car, and it rose into the air.
You look so sad,
Rachel said. Putting his hand out, he touched her cheek.
You're not going to be able to hunt androids any longer, so don't look sad. Please.
He stared at her.
No bounty hunter ever has gone on after being with me. Except one, a very cynical man, Phil Resch, and he's nutty. He works out in left field on his own.
I see, Rick said. He felt numb, completely, throughout his entire body. These androids, do you know all of them?
I knew all of them when they still existed. I know 3 now. We tried to stop you this morning, before you started out on your list. I tried again just before Polikoff reached you. But then after that, I had to wait.
Until I broke down and had to call you.
The Rosen Association wanted to reach the bounty hunters here and in the Soviet Union. And this seemed to work for reasons which we do not fully understand. Our limitation, again, I guess.
I doubt if it works as often or as well as you say.
But it has with you.
We'll see.
I already know. When I saw that expression on your face, that grief, I look for that.
How many times have you done this?
I don't remember. 7, 8. No, I believe it's 9. Yes, 9 times.
The idea is old-fashioned.
What?
Pushing the steering wheel away from him, he put the car into a gliding decline. Or anyhow, that's how it strikes me. I'm going to kill you, and go on to Roy and Irmgard Batty and Pris Stratton, alone.
That's why you're landing? There's a fine. I'm the property, the legal property of the association. I'm not an escaped android who fled here from Mars. I'm not in the same class as the others.
But if I can kill you, I can kill them. Her hands dived for her bulging, overstuffed purse. She searched frantically, then gave up.
God damn this purse,
she said with ferocity.
I never can lay my hands on anything in it. Will you kill me in a way that won't hurt? I mean, do it carefully. If I don't fight, okay? I promise not to fight. Do you agree?
The classic android resignation. Mechanical, intellectual acceptance of that which a genuine organism, with 2 billion years of the pressure to live and evolve hag-riding it, could never have reconciled itself to. I can't stand the way you androids give up, he said savagely. The car now swooped almost to the ground. He had to jerk the wheel toward him to avoid a crash. Braking, he managed to bring the car to a staggering, careening halt. He slammed off the motor and got out his laser tube.
At the occipital bone, the posterior base of my skull. Please.
She twisted about so that she did not have to look at the laser tube. The beam would enter unperceived. Putting his laser tube away, Rick said, I'm not going to kill you. He steered the car in the direction of downtown San Francisco once again. Your car's at the St. Francis, isn't it? I'll let you off there, and you can head for Seattle." That ended what he had to say. He drove in silence.
"Thanks for not killing me,"
Rachel said presently. "Hell, as you said, you've only got 2 years of life left anyhow, and I've got 50. I'll live 25 times as long as you."
"Go on home to your goat. You love that goat more than me. More than you love your wife, probably. First the goat, then your wife. Then, last of all." Oh, what can you do but laugh?
He did not answer. They continued in silence toward the largely deserted suburbs. Connaught Building 3967C was dark. Landing nearby, Rick got out of his hovercar and moved up a broken path toward the main door of the apartment block. Suddenly, a man appeared, crouching in the beam. "What are you doing?" Rick asked.
I put down a spider."
In the beam of yellow light, the spider rested on a serrated leaf.
"So it could get away."
"Why don't you take it up to your apartment? You ought to keep it in a jar. You could have gotten $100 and some odd for it." The man said,
"If I took it back up there, she'd cut it apart again, bit by bit, to see what it did."
"Androids do that," Rick said. Reaching into his overcoat, he extended his ID toward the man. "I'm an investigator for the San Francisco Police Department. Deckard, Rick Deckard. They're up there now, the 3.
Well, the thing is, I'm looking after them. 2 are women. They're the last ones of the group. The rest are dead."
"You're a special, aren't you? Degraded by the dust. A chicken head."
"I am J.R. Isidore, and I have a job. I drive a truck for the pet hospital, the Van Ness Pet Hospital, owned by Hannibal Sloat."
Deckard said, "Will you take me up there and show me which apartment they're in? There are over 1,000 separate apartments. You can save me a lot of time."
"No,"
Isidore said. "Under state law," Deckard began. He ceased then, giving up the interrogation. "Good night," he said, and walked away. Up the path and into the building, his flashlight bleeding a yellowed, diffuse path before him. He had brought listening gear from his car. Suddenly it indicated a faint signal upstairs. He began to climb the stairs to the next floor. A figure in the shadows waited. "If you move, I'll retire you," Rick said. In his clenched fingers, the laser tube felt hard, but he could not lift it and aim it. He had been caught first, caught too soon. Rick spun and sank onto his haunches, facing the flight of stairs. Up it glided a woman toward him, and he knew her. He recognized her, and lowered his laser tube. "Rachel," he said, perplexed, and then he saw that it was not quite Rachel.
"For what we've meant to each other,"
the android said as it approached him, its arms reaching as if to clutch at him. The eyes, the same eyes. He fired at her, as imploringly she dashed toward him. The android burst, and parts of it flew. He covered his face, and then looked again, looked and saw the laser tube which it had carried roll away back onto the stairs. The metal tube bounced downward, step by step, the sound echoing and diminishing and slowing. The hard one of the 3. And now, the other 2, he thought. He hurried down the hall, and all at once his detection gear registered the presence of cephalic activity. He had found their apartment. He rapped on the door. From within, a man's voice sounded.
"Who is it?"
"This is Mr. Isidore," Rick said.
"We're not opening the door,"
a woman's voice came.
"I drive a truck for the Van Ness Pet Hospital, which is owned by Mr. Hannibal Sloat. So would you open the door? It's my apartment."
He waited, and the door opened. Within the apartment he saw darkness and indistinct shapes, 2 of them. The smaller shape, the woman, said, "You have to administer tests." "It's too late," Rick said. The taller figure tried to push the door shut and turn on some variety of electronic equipment. He let Roy Batty fire once. He held his own fire until the laser beam had passed by him as he twisted out of the way. "You've lost your legal basis by firing on me. You should have forced me to give you the Voight-Kampff detection test, but now it doesn't matter." Once more, Roy Batty sent a laser beam cutting at him, missed, and ran somewhere deeper inside the apartment, to another room perhaps, the electronic hardware abandoned. "Why didn't Pris get you?" Mrs. Batty said. "There is no Pris, only Rachel Rosen, over and over again." He saw the laser tube in her dimly outlined hand. Roy Batty had slipped it to her, had meant to decoy him into the apartment, far in, so that Irmgard Batty could get him from behind, in the back. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Batty," Rick said, and shot her. Roy Batty, in the other room, let out a cry of anguish. "Okay, you loved her, and I loved Rachel, and the chickenhead Isidore loved the other Rachel." He shot Roy Batty. The big man's corpse lashed about, toppled like an overstacked collection of separate, brittle entities. It smashed into the kitchen table and carried dishes and cups down with it. When Rick got back to his apartment building, his wife Iran met him on the roof. She looked at him in a deranged, peculiar way. In all his years with her, he had never seen her like this. Putting his arm around her, he said, "Anyhow, it's over. And I've been thinking, maybe they can assign me to a different—" "Rick," she said, "I have to tell you something. I'm sorry. The goat is dead." For some reason it did not surprise him. It only made him feel worse, a quantitative addition to the weight shrinking him from every side. "I think there's a guarantee in the contract. If it gets sick within 90 days, the dealer—" "It didn't get sick. Someone came here, got the goat out of its cage, and dragged it to the edge of the roof." "And pushed it off?" "Yes." "Did you see who did it?" "I saw her very clearly. A small young-looking girl, with dark hair and large black eyes, very thin, wearing a long fish-scale coat, and she made no effort to keep me from seeing her, as if she didn't care." He turned toward his parked car, opened the door, and got in behind the wheel. "Where are you going? Will you be all right?" "I'll be all right," he said, as the car took off and headed away from San Francisco, toward the uninhabited desolation of the north, to the place where no living thing would go. Not unless it felt that the end had come. In the early morning light, the land extended seemingly forever, gray and refuse-littered, lifeless, everything long ago killed by the dust. He sat in the car and thought, in one sense, I'm now the greatest bounty hunter who ever lived. No one ever retired 6 Nexus 6 types in one 24-hour span, and no one probably ever will again. He opened the door and stepped out. A noxious, unexpected wind filtered through his clothes. Too tired, he thought, to walk. Heat and hunger overtook him, and with relief, he plucked open the car door and squeezed back inside. Trembling, he picked up the phone receiver to call his wife, and froze. He set the receiver back down and did not take his eyes from the spot that had moved outside the car. The bulge in the ground, among the stones. An animal, he said to himself, and his heart lugged under the excessive load, the shock of recognition. I know what it is, he realized. I've never seen one before, but I know it from the old nature films they show on government TV. They're extinct, he said to himself. Swiftly, he dragged out his much-creased Sydney's Animal and Fowl catalog, turned the pages with twitching fingers, toad, all varieties, E for extinct. I need a box, he thought. He grabbed a cardboard container and walked slowly toward the toad, not taking his eyes from it. The toad, he saw, blended in totally with the texture and shade of the ever-present dust. It had perhaps evolved, meeting the new climate as it had met all climates before. What happens when you find, if you find, an animal believed extinct? He asked himself, trying to remember. It happened so seldom. Something about a Star of Honor from the UN, and a stipend. A reward running into millions of dollars. Jesus, it can't be. Maybe it's due to some brain damage on my part. Exposure to radioactivity. He squatted on his haunches, close beside the toad, and carefully began brushing the loose soil away from it. When he lifted the toad out, he felt its peculiar coolness. Now the toad squirmed. With its weak hind feet, it tried to pry itself from his grip. As he placed the carefully tied box on the car seat, all the weight left him, the monumental and oppressive fatigue. Eagerly he switched the motor on, and shortly he had zipped up into the sky in the direction of San Francisco, 700 miles to the south. He knocked on the apartment door, and his wife ran to open it. "Hi," he said. There he stood, a cut on his cheek, his clothes wrinkled and gray, even his hair saturated with dust. His hands, his face, dust clung to every part of him except his eyes. Round with awe, his eyes shone, like those of a little boy. "It's nice to see you," she said. "I have something." He held a cardboard box with both hands. When he entered the apartment, he did not set it down, as if, she thought, it contained something too fragile and too valuable to let go of. He wanted to keep it perpetually in his hands. A toad. "Can I see it?" I thought toads were extinct," she said, as she turned it over, curious about its legs. They seemed almost useless. "I found it in the desert, up near the Oregon border, where everything had died." He reached to take it back from her, but she had discovered something. Still holding it upside down, she poked at its abdomen, and then, with her nail, located the tiny control panel. She flipped the panel open. "Oh." His face fell by degrees. "Yeah, so I see. You're right." Crestfallen, he gazed mutely at the false animal. He took it back from her, fiddled with the legs as if baffled. He did not seem quite to understand. He then carefully replaced it in its box. "Maybe I shouldn't have told you about it being electrical." She put her hand out, touched his arm. She felt guilty, seeing the effect it had on him. The change. "No, I'm glad to know. Or rather, I'd prefer to know." "But it doesn't matter. The electric things have their lives, too, paltry as those lives are." "You look as if you've walked 100 miles. "It's been a long day." "Get into bed and sleep." He stared at her then, as if perplexed. "It is over, isn't it?" "It's over," she said. Once she was sure Rick was asleep, Iran opened the yellow pages under Animal Accessories Electric. She dialed, and when the saleswoman answered, said, "I'd like to order 1 pound of artificial flies that really fly around and buzz, please."
Is it for an electric turtle, ma'am?
"A toad," she said.
Then I suggest our mixed assortment of artificial crawling and flying bugs of all types, including
"The flies will do. Will you deliver?"
The clerk said,
For a toad, I'd suggest a perpetually renewing puddle, and if you're going to be putting it through its feed cycle regularly, I suggest you let our service department make a periodic tongue adjustment. In a toad, that's vital.
"Fine. I want it to work perfectly. My husband is devoted to it."
She gave her address and hung up. And, feeling better, fixed herself at last a cup of black, hot coffee.